Why do some people visualize, set goals, stay positive, yet nothing actually changes in their life? And why do others make a decision, take a few aligned actions, and suddenly opportunities, people, and outcomes start showing up almost on cue? There's a principle that most people completely miss. You don't get what you want, you get what you're emotionally conditioned to expect. I'm Justin Kaiser, co-founder and CEO of Empire Franchising. And after 24 years of building businesses, structuring deals, and studying both execution and the deeper mechanics behind success, I've come to understand something very clearly. Your results are not created by your goals. They're created by your internal baseline. And that baseline is emotional. Marcus Aurelius said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. But what he's really pointing to is this. Your dominant thoughts create a pattern, and that pattern becomes your normal, and your normal becomes what you expect, and what you expect is what you unconsciously create. This is why two people can have the same goal, take similar actions, and still get completely different results. One expects it to work, and the other hopes that it will. Expectation is much stronger than effort, and Napoleon Hill said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Conceive, not try, believe. Because belief is not intellectual, it's emotional. It's what you feel is normal. When I started my first business at 18 years old, I didn't have a plan, but I had a certain expectation and I had belief. I knew that I would figure it out, and that expectation shaped my behavior. I didn't hesitate. I didn't overanalyze. I didn't stop when things got difficult because internally I expected progress. I expected success. Now later on, 20 years later, when we started scaling solar grids, building out franchise systems, navigating industry shifts, we didn't rely on motivation. We operated from expectation. We expected growth. We expected to solve problems. We expected to expand. And because of that, our actions stayed consistent, even when conditions weren't perfect. That's the key. Emotional conditioning determines consistency. Neville Goddard explained this in a very direct way. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue feeling that it is fulfilled until that which you feel objectifies itself. Most people hear that and think visualization, but what he's really saying is this. You have to normalize the outcome emotionally before it shows up physically, because the subconscious doesn't respond to what you say and what you want. It responds to what feels familiar. Earl Nightingale said, we become what we think about, but the deeper layer is this. We become what we repeatedly think about with emotional clarity, not occasionally, not when we're inspired, but consistently. Joe Dispenza put a modern twist on this. He said, the brain is a record of the past, which means if your emotional baseline is tied to your past results, you're going to recreate those results, no matter what goals you set. So if you've experienced inconsistency, struggle, or slow progress, and that feels normal to you, your mind is going to keep reproducing it, not because you want it, but because it's familiar. And that's how conditioning works. This is where most people get stuck. They're trying to create a new result while still operating from an old emotional baseline. They want growth, but they feel uncertainty. They want success, but they feel doubt. And those two don't align. Empire builders understand something different. They don't wait for results to change how they feel. They change how they feel first, and then they hold that state long enough for results to follow. That's the shift. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at change. That's exactly what happens when your emotional baseline shifts. Your perception changes, and perception drives behavior. So the real question isn't what do you want? The real question is what feels normal to you right now? Because that's what you're going to create. If struggle feels normal, you'll recreate it. If growth feels normal, you'll move toward it. If expansion feels normal, you'll find it. Now, becoming doesn't just happen at the level of identity. It happens at the level of emotional conditioning. And once that conditioning changes, everything else begins to align. So if you feel like you've been doing all the work but not seeing the result, don't just look at your strategy. Look at your baseline. What are you actually expecting? What feels natural? What feels inevitable? Because that's the signal your subconscious is following. And once you shift that, once you normalize the outcome before it shows up, your actions stabilize. Your consistency increases and results begin to follow. Now, if this message resonated with you, this is exactly what we talk about in this series. Understanding not just what to do, but how to operate internally so that what you do actually works. If you're ready to stop chasing results and start creating them from the inside out, then subscribe to this channel and follow us. Start conditioning yourself to expect the life that you've been trying to build. Because once that expectation becomes real, everything else starts to change.